Alabama's coronavirus numbers are in free fall. Many of the key measures used to track the pandemic have drastically improved in recent weeks. That includes both the number of new cases reported each day and the number of people being treated for the virus in the state's hospitals. This is the most optimistic that we've been, I think, maybe since this all began, State Health Officer Scott Harris said in a press conference on Friday. We see a path forward. I mean, we know how we're going to get there now. And it seems to be working. The Alabama Department of Public Health reported 6,545 new virus cases this week, the lowest weekly total since early October. Can't see the chart? Click here. The record for cases reported in a week came in the first full week of 2021, when the state reported more than 28,500 cases. Since then, weekly cases have fallen by nearly 80%. The message is that we're not out of the woods, but we see how to get out of the woods, Harris said. And please don't stop doing the things that you're doing. This is not the time to ease up on wearing your mask, or it's not the time to go be in large groups of people and think that everything is going to be just fine. The week's low case total caused the state's 7-day average for new cases to fall below 1,000 cases per day for the first time in months. That number fell to 970.7 on Thursday, before falling farther to 935 cases per day on Friday. The last time the state's 7-day average was that low was October 12. Can't see the chart? Click here. The 7-day average has fallen by 78% since January 10, when the state was reporting 4,281 cases per day. Alabama's hospitalization numbers have fallen in similar fashion. The number of people being treated for the virus in state hospitals on a given day fell below 1,000 this week. State data shows 989 people were being treated across Alabama on Thursday. That number dropped again on Friday, down to 951 inpatients with 106 hospitals reporting. On January 11, less than a month and a half ago, there were 3,084 people being treated for the virus in Alabama hospitals. Can't see the chart? Click here. Harris on Friday compared the state's current hospitalization numbers to what the state saw last summer. We're right about 1,000 confirmed inpatients in the state right now. That's a number that we never reached, if I'm not mistaken, until about June or July last year, he said. You know, the really difficult July and August we had, I don't believe we ever were more than 1,600. But we're below that level at this point. So that's certainly better than we've been since the early part of summer. Harris cautioned that there is still work to be done. 1,000 people in the hospital is a lot of sick people, he said. I don't want to, try to sound too optimistic about that. We're almost there. We have a few more months to go. Please continue to think about those people who are most vulnerable. A plane crash on Saturday near the Cullman Regional Airport left one person dead and another injured, according to Cullman County Coroner Jeremy L. Kilpatrick. The airport's general manager, Ben Harrison, confirmed that the person was critically injured, and said the crash happened in a wooded area about a half-mile west of the airfield. The plane appeared to be a single-engine aircraft, Harrison said. The crash happened on Saturday evening, according to a report by the Cullman Tribune. No other details were available, but the Cullman County Sheriff's Office said the county's emergency management agency would release more information later. An investigation is ongoing. Saturday's deadly crash comes a day after 2 U.S. Air Force pilots were killed when a trainer jet crashed near Dannelly Field in Montgomery. Marshall Taggart, executive director of the Montgomery Regional Airport, told the Associated Press and other news outlets that the plane crashed in a wooded area near the airport. The crash involved a T-38 trainer aircraft assigned to the 14th Flying Training Wing at Columbus Air Force Base in Mississippi, according to a statement from Air Force officials. The names of the pilots, who were on a training mission, are being withheld until the families are notified. Montgomery, 2 Air Force pilots were killed Friday when a trainer jet crashed near an Alabama airport, the military branch confirmed. The crash involved a T-38 trainer aircraft assigned to the 14th Flying Training Wing at Columbus Air Force Base in Mississippi. Officials from the 14th Flying Training Wing confirmed in a news release that both pilots aboard the aircraft were killed. The pilots were flying a training mission. Our thoughts and prayers are with the families of the 2 pilots involved in this incident, Colonel Seth Graham, 14th Flying Training Wing Commander said in a released statement. There are no words that can describe the sadness that accompanies the loss of our teammates. The names of the pilots are being withheld until the families are notified. The jet crashed at about 5:30 p.m. near Dannelly Field in Montgomery. A safety investigation board will convene to investigate. Authorities said the cause of the crash wasn't immediately known. Marshall Taggart, executive director of the Montgomery Regional Airport, told news outlets that the aircraft crashed in a wooded area near the airport. News outlets showed a number of police cars and fire trucks at the scene. The Columbus Air Force Base is home of the 14th Flying Training Wing of Air Education and Training Command's 19th Air Force. According to the base website, the 14th FTW mission statement is Cultivate Airmen, Create Pilots, Connect. The wing's mission is specialized undergraduate pilot training. The start of the AHSAA Northwest Regional Basketball Championships at Wallace State Hanceville has been rescheduled for Tuesday, February 23, AHSAA Executive Director Steve Savarese announced Friday morning. The regional was originally scheduled to begin Monday with finals in Class 4A and 5A boys and girls. However, winter weather in the north part of the state has pushed some sub-regional games and regional semifinals back considerably. The updated schedule for all finals at the Northwest Regional will remain in the same daily order and times. The 4A and 5A games, originally scheduled for Monday, will now be played at the same times on Tuesday. The Northeast Regional Championships at Jacksonville State and the Southwest and Southeast Regional Championships at Garrett Coliseum in Montgomery will start on Monday as scheduled. The Northeast Regional and the Southeast Regional will conclude on Thursday. The Northwest Regional and Southwest Regional will conclude on Friday. The state finals are also scheduled to start on Friday with Class 4A semifinal games at Bill Harris Arena in Birmingham. Alabama has received an F for its gun laws and is the 5th worst state in the nation for deaths from gun violence, according to a new national study. The grading came from the annual gun law scorecard from the Giffords Law Center to Prevent Gun Violence, out this week. The ranking is tabulated comparing gun legislation in all 50 states, assigning point values to laws and policies based on their strengths or weaknesses. The center is a public interest organization based in San Francisco, founded in 1993. Another 20 states received an F on the annual ranking, which put California first for its gun laws, one of 7 states receiving As. Alabama, in particular, was grouped among states responsible for the export of guns used for crimes in other states. The study notes that 22 out of every 100,000 Alabamians is a victim of gun violence, while the national rate is 11.9. Alabama has very weak gun laws and has not enacted meaningful gun safety legislation in recent years, the center said. Instead, in 2020, the state took steps to loosen restrictions on carrying firearms in houses of worship. Last year, voters approved Amendments 5 and 6 for Franklin and Lauderdale counties, allowing protection to anyone who uses force or kills someone in self-defense in a church. The center recommended Alabama lawmakers pass background check legislation and establish waiting periods for all firearm sales, as well as establish community violence intervention programs. This year's study also noted that among the states receiving F grades, Black Americans have a 117% higher gun death rate than the national average. According to the Giffords Center, despite the COVID-19 pandemic, 13 states passed 43 gun safety laws in 2020. That makes 180 gun laws passed since the February 14, 2018 Parkland, Florida, shooting, when a gunman opened fire with a semi-automatic rifle at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School, killing 17 people and injuring another 17. An Alabama grand jury declined to indict the half-brother of civil rights activist Al Sharpton on a 2018 Capitol murder. Court records made public Thursday show the grand jury returned a no bill in the case against the Reverend Kenneth Glasgow, a 55-year-old Alabama pastor who founder of the Ordinary People's Society, a nonprofit focused on criminal justice issues and prison conditions. He still faces unrelated charges of drug possession, assault on a police officer, and tampering with physical evidence. Glasgow and Jamie Towns, 29, were charged in the killing of 23-year-old Brunia Jennings. She was killed that Sunday night when multiple shots were fired into her vehicle while she was driving O'Allen Road. Towns was the alleged shooter in the case. Glasgow was charged because he drove Towns to where the shooting happened. Charges have not been dismissed against Towns. Glasgow has claimed the capital murder was retribution for his decades of activism around prisoner rights. Glasgow was believed to have had a scuffle with a Dothan police officer during the 2020 arrest. Allegedly, Mr. Glasgow had an unspecified amount of crack inside his pocket, and as the officer attempted to place Glasgow under arrest, a struggle began, injuring the officer. Evidence was also tampered with, Dothan Police Lieutenant Doug Magel said at the time. A trial date on the other charges has not yet been announced. He is still awaiting trial in that case on charges of second-degree assault, unlawful possession of a controlled substance and tampering with physical evidence. Alabama announced Thursday a 3-year contract extension for head men's basketball coach Nate Oates. The new deal runs through the 2026-27 season and raises his pay to $3.225 million annually. "We are excited to agree to a contract extension with the University of Alabama," Oates said in a statement. "Crystal and our daughters love it here, and we are committed to the University of Alabama. We feel like we have a lot of positive momentum going with our team and have the program headed in the right direction. Our administration is making a major statement with this extension as we all work on building a successful program for the long term. I know the winning history we've had with Alabama basketball, and I feel like we can add to that and accomplish great things here. We appreciate the opportunity Greg Byrne and our athletics administration, President Stuart Bell, Chancellor St. John and the Board of Trustees have provided us. This is really a reflection of the outstanding job that our players, coaches and basketball staff have done the last 2 years. Now we need all of our focus to be on finishing this season the right way and giving our team the best chance to succeed down the stretch." Alabama hired Oates in 2019 after 4 seasons as Buffalo's coach, bringing a young coach to Tuscaloosa who emphasized a fast pace of play, frequent three-point shooting and advanced statistics in decision-making. Oates has a 33-20 overall record and is 20-11 in the SEC since taking over the Tide. His teams have beaten every conference opponent except Texas A&M. The Tide and Aggies were set to meet Thursday before that game was postponed. "We are thrilled to be able to announce a contract extension with our head men's basketball coach Nate Oates," Athletics Director Greg Byrne said in a statement. "We had great expectations when we hired Coach Oates. He has exceeded those expectations, and we want to ensure he is compensated among the top half of the SEC. We have put buyout measures in place that show the long-term commitment between both parties. Coach Oates and his staff have built a comprehensive program that has maximized our student-athletes' experience, significantly increased interest in Alabama basketball with future recruits and put forward a product that has excited our fan base. Nate, Crystal and the Oates family have embraced our community and state and, in turn, our fans have embraced them. A special thanks goes to President Bell, Chancellor St. John and our Board of Trustees for their support in helping to get this extension done." Oates, 46, is a Wisconsin native who spent 12 seasons 2002-13 as a high school basketball coach outside Detroit before being hired by Buffalo as an assistant. He was promoted to head coach after Bobby Hurley left the Bulls for Arizona State in 2015. In his 4 seasons leading Buffalo, Oates' teams won 3 Mid-American Conference championships and won 2 first-round NCAA tournament games. A new program to help Alabamians cope with the stress caused by COVID-19 has launched with a phone line and dozens of trained counselors stationed around the state. A federal grant to the Alabama Department of Mental Health funds the program, called Alabama Apart Together. It's similar to past programs to address stress in the aftermath of natural disasters, but larger and designed for virtual formats such as social media and Zoom, said State Director Lisa Turley. The phone number is 1-888-442-1793. The program is based out of 9 of the state's community mental health centers but is designed for anyone seeking a sympathetic voice or assistance grappling with family or financial issues. In December, Turley said many of the calls came from seniors who felt lonely and disconnected. More recently, more calls have been coming in from people expressing frustration and fatigue as the anniversary of the first COVID cases approaches. Now our calls are people just realizing we are coming up on 1 year of life as we now know it, Turley said. People just realizing that just because it's 2021, we didn't have a magic reset. In addition to providing sympathy and advice, counselors connected to the program can also make connections to more specialized services. The pandemic has taken a devastating toll on mental health. In a poll in June of 2020, 40% of adults said they experienced depression, anxiety or another mental illness related to COVID-19. Overdose deaths surged during the spring and early summer, reaching all-time highs in the 12 months that ended on June 1, 2020. Stress from fear of the virus was compounded by financial strain and school closures. Many people across the nation lost income or work during lockdowns and some had to quit to stay home with children. Turley said state officials saw the need for the grant early in the pandemic. Our local mental health centers this spring were just being overwhelmed with calls from folks who really don't need mental health treatment, they just needed support, Turley said. During past disasters, support teams could fan out into affected communities, talking to residents and learning about people who may need extra help. The pandemic has hampered that, but Turley said her workers have been trying to find ways to connect without face-to-face meetings. In some areas, they have helped organize support groups that meet over Zoom. Calls are confidential and anonymous, and the program allows users to communicate by text if they prefer. The grant lasts through July but may be extended, Turley said. We don't assume they are in need of mental health services, Turley said. We just assume they are having a tough time right now. When Mary Smallwood was diagnosed with COVID-19, her husband, Jimmy, decided he wouldn't leave her side. That choice cost him his life, his family said, but he wouldn't have done anything differently. The Smallwoods, both 77, were Alexandria High School sweethearts who had married when they were 17. They both caught the virus after a family get-together at Christmas that left at least 16 members of the family infected. Mary was diagnosed first, said her daughter, LaDonna Smallwood, who tested negative. Somehow, Jimmy also tested negative. LaDonna begged him to stay at her house to quarantine, just 100 feet or so up the same driveway where Mary and Jimmy lived, but he refused, even after a doctor insisted he should avoid the virus due to his existing medical conditions. I knew with his heart, he couldn't make it, LaDonna said this week, seated in the living room at Mary's house near Weaver alongside her brother, Philip Smallwood, and his wife, Robin, both of whom also contracted COVID. He said, hush, that he knew he was going to heaven if he died, and he wasn't losing his wife. In early January, Mary ended up in the emergency room at Regional Medical Center in Anniston. Her lips had turned purple from a lack of oxygen, LaDonna said. Robin was hospitalized, too. Philip said he managed to ride out the virus at home, but one day Jimmy collapsed. His blood oxygen level was at 60%, Robin said, something the family learned from the emergency workers who transported him to the ER. A level of 95 to 100% is normal, anything below 90% is considered low. The last Mary and Jimmy saw of each other was during their stay in the emergency room. Afterward, they were kept in the hospital's COVID ward in separate rooms, 2 doors apart from each other. Mary had to be put on a ventilator, LaDonna said, and Jimmy seemed to understand that something was happening with his wife. He became agitated several times, and nurses would put LaDonna, herself a nurse, on the phone to calm him. Eventually, she said, he coded, his heart had finally had too much from the stress of the virus and hospitalization and the sedation required for ventilation. After 20 minutes of work to resuscitate him, LaDonna said, she told doctors to stop. Jimmy died January 13 at 1:34 a.m., she said. Mary and Robin have since returned home, but they share an oxygen machine that sits on the floor between them, clear tubes snaking out and up to Mary's recliner and Robin's seat on the living room couch. They expected to have the machine for 3 or 4 weeks, but a month later, Robin can't disconnect for more than a few minutes without her oxygen dropping dangerously low, she said. Asked how she's holding up, Mary is tough, but honest. Fair, she said. On the other end of the couch is another big recliner, empty, where Jimmy used to sit. I miss my husband more than anything. A South Alabama woman has been charged in the January riot at the U.S. Capitol. Carrie Dawn Kelly, a 40-year-old insurance adjuster from Mobile, is charged with unlawful entry of a restricted building and disorderly conduct, according to federal court records made public this week. Kelly was among the crowd that forced its way into the building while the joint session of Congress was underway to certify the vote count of the Electoral College in the 2020 presidential election. The federal complaint against Kelly was filed under seal on February 10 and unsealed Wednesday. Kelly was arrested Thursday in Mobile and appeared before federal magistrate Judge Burt Milling. According to the criminal complaint filed against her, the FBI on January 21 became aware that Kelly had been inside the Capitol during the January 6 incident. Kelly was seen in footage climbing through an open window and was present in the Senate wing of the building. The footage time stamp was 2:56 p.m. It showed her in a ponytail, a cream-colored scarf and a hooded Adidas sweatshirt. Kelly was seen recording the events on her cell phone. The FBI said they verified Kelly's identity through database checks. Kelly and her federal public defender did not immediately respond to a request for comment. She was released pending trial.
While more than 1.5 million Alabamians are now eligible to receive the COVID-19 vaccine, people under 65 with serious medical conditions are still playing the waiting game. Unfortunately, Alabama has a whole lot of those problems in abundance: chronic health problems like diabetes, and heart disease, and even obesity, and chronic lung disease, said Alabama State Health Officer Scott Harris on Friday. That group of people makes up about a third of our state. Harris said the state still has no clear timetable for when it expects to make the vaccine available to those with pre-existing conditions that make them more likely to have serious problems if they also catch COVID-19. Everyone deserves to have the vaccine, Harris said in a media call. And you know, it's certainly not because we've said somebody is more important than somebody else, or somebody is more deserving than somebody else. The problem is we just don't have enough to go around right now. Harris said more than 530,000 Alabamians have received at least one dose of the two-dose COVID vaccines, but there are more than 1.5 million people in Alabama currently eligible to receive the vaccine, including people aged 65 and older, medical workers, first responders, teachers, childcare workers and certain food and critical infrastructure workers. According to the Alabama Vaccine Allocation Plan, compiled using guidance from the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and other federal agencies, the next group of people to be made eligible for the vaccine would include people with certain health conditions, including cancer, kidney disease, heart conditions, immune problems, obesity, smoking, diabetes, pregnancy and more. So far there has been no separate carve-out for people who have more serious illnesses as opposed to more common conditions like obesity or smoking, and Harris gave no hints as to when it might be made available to the group as a whole. The answer to your question, said Harris, is we will absolutely make that available as soon as possible. We just don't have enough right now. As of Friday, Alabama reported receiving just over 1 million doses of vaccine, about a third of the total number of doses needed to fully vaccinate those who are currently eligible. Harris said the amount of vaccine the state receives each week is slowly increasing, thanks to improvements in the manufacturing process, but the state does not expect a dramatic increase in supply unless new vaccines are authorized for use in the U.S. In the meantime, Harris said the state does not plan to offer the vaccine to additional populations until demand begins to subside among the currently eligible groups. As long as we're running our clinics, and we're giving every dose we have, and there's, enough demand that we don't have vaccines sitting on the shelf, I think we're going to continue to stay the course, Harris said.
Metairie, Louisiana, a person entered a gun store and shooting range in a New Orleans suburb and fatally shot 2 people Saturday, prompting customers and staff to open fire on the shooter, a sheriff said. The shooter also died. The shooting happened around 2:50 p.m. at the Jefferson Gun Outlet in the suburb of Metairie, according to a release from the Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Office. Sheriff Joseph Lapinto said the shooter initially struck 2 people inside, and then several other people, whether employees or store customers, opened fire on the shooter, both inside and outside of the building. Outside the building, a man could be seen afterward behind yellow police tape yelling, "Where is my son?" Guns and ammunition are sold in the front of the outlet that faces a main thoroughfare through Jefferson Parish. Customers who want to frequent the gun range generally go around to the side entrance of the building. Staff who work there often wear a sidearm. Lipinto said 2 other people also were hit by gunfire and were hospitalized in stable condition. He said there were multiple shooters. "We're trying to put it all together," the sheriff said during a short briefing with journalists. None of the dead or wounded were immediately identified and details remained unclear. Tyrone Russell and Winetta Joseph were both in a conceal and carry course at the store when they heard what they both described as rapid firing. They said the gunfire sounded much louder than the usual muffled shooting that they are used to hearing inside the shooting range. "We heard the gunshots and the screaming," said Russell. "When the police came, they escorted us out. I could see glass everywhere. It was just like a really scary scene. It got extremely loud, like a bomb almost," said Joseph, who hid with other students under a table, not knowing if there were multiple shooters or if one was near the classroom. One instructor stayed with the students while 2 others left the room and headed toward the sound of gunfire. Russell said that when he was let out, he could see a guy laid out in the parking lot not far from his car, which was struck by bullets. He described seeing shattered glass, bullet casings strewn about the store. Caution tape surrounded the business to keep onlookers from getting close to the scene, where ambulances and numerous law enforcement vehicles had converged. A neighboring Taco Bell eatery had been evacuated. Authorities remained at the scene as night fell. Metairie is a major suburb of New Orleans, about 5 miles west of the city's iconic French Quarter, in the neighboring jurisdiction of Jefferson Parish.
When Auburn played the No. 1 team, Gonzaga, it lost by 23 points, its worst loss of the season. But unranked LSU dealt it an even bigger blow with its 104-80 win Saturday afternoon. Auburn came out and dominated the first minute by scoring 5 straight points, but after a few minutes, LSU took over the game, making Auburn's hot start a barely remembered thing of the past. Auburn maintained its 5-point lead for 4 straight minutes. It found holes in LSU's defense, which is based on switching, and made its shots. Things fell apart after LSU kicked into gear and went on a 13-point run. Babatunde Akingbola made a layup to finally end Auburn's scoring drought, but for every basket Auburn made after that, LSU made 2. Just before the end of the half, a brief spark made it seem like Auburn might find some momentum. It went on a 7-0 run, forcing LSU to call a timeout. While LSU wasn't able to build back up to a 22-point lead, it maintained a 16-point lead heading into halftime. The halftime adjustments weren't evident for Auburn as LSU responded to Auburn's opening bucket by taking the inbounds pass and blowing past Auburn players for the first of many more 3-pointers. Auburn started to press, but it was ineffective at best. LSU broke it easily, getting down the court without wasting much time. It also beat Auburn on its own press for open baskets. Auburn played a tighter game and competed better in the second half, but it still lost the second half. Combined with the first half deficit, Auburn suffered a 24-point loss, 1 point worse than its loss to Gonzaga, while giving up the most points to an opponent that it had all year. And while there was only a 1-point difference between Auburn's loss to Gonzaga and to LSU, coach Bruce Pearl said this felt nothing like the Gonzaga game. "Man, I'm disappointed," Pearl said. "I thought we had a great game plan, a good week of preparation, I thought we were excited about playing." Here are some takeaways from the 104-80 loss. Some of LSU's baskets were just ridiculous, incredible shots Auburn couldn't do any about, like the 3-pointers shot from the logo in the center of the court that went in with a swish. But LSU also made a number of easy buckets by simply running over the Auburn defenders. They bowled over their own defender and cut through those who crashed to help in the paint. They scored layups and finger rolls and putbacks as Auburn players put up futile attempts to stop them. While Auburn did make an attempt at resistance, it just didn't match LSU's physicality. When we're not locked in and we don't compete and we get pushed around like that, physically, look, Florida's going to push around. Tennessee's going to push us around, Pearl said. Our big guys are young, and they're not physical enough. And we don't have enough physicality and toughness, and it really showed tonight. It got outscored 50-38 in the paint.
Biloxi's annual Crawfish Music Festival will return in April, organizers have announced, with Alabama's Riley Green among the top acts in its country music lineup. Like many other spring 2020 events, the 28th annual fest was postponed amid growing concerns over the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. Organizers initially hoped to reschedule it but were unable to do so. The 28th edition of the fest is now set for April 14–18 at the Mississippi Coast Coliseum. The spring date bucks the general trend of major entertainment events shifting to summer and fall. Among those that have done so are New Orleans French Quarter Festival and the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival. In addition to 3 days of music and spicy boiled crawfish, the Biloxi event's attractions will include Carnival Midway rides. According to promotional information, this year will be slightly different with limited capacity to maintain a healthy and safe environment. The MS Coast Coliseum has and will keep going the extra mile to ensure the safety of everyone. Reserved seating will be sold in pods of 2 or 4 seats. The lineup unveiled Thursday includes headliners Riley Green on Friday, April 16th, Hardy on Saturday, April 17th, and Blackberry Smoke on April 18th. Other advertised acts are Frank Foster, Nico Moon, Trey Lewis, John Langston, Cameron Marlowe, After Midtown, Cole Jones, Chris Flowers and Louisiana Express, Tall Boys and the Chitlins. Tickets start at $30 and go on sale at 10 a.m. Friday, February 26th. For more information, visit www.facebook.com/Mississippi Coast Coliseum or www.mscoastcoliseum.com.
It's been a roller coaster week for Georgiana's Kirk Norris. Norris coached his girls and boys basketball teams to Class 1A subregional wins earlier in the week before finding out that he and his boys' team had been exposed to a positive COVID-19 test on Wednesday. As a result, the Georgiana boys will forfeit tonight's Southeast Regional semifinal game against Winterboro, ending the Panthers' season. "I was heartbroken for my boys because I thought they had really improved," said Norris, who coaches the boys and the girls and is also the school's athletic director. "This was probably one of the most improved teams I've ever had from the beginning of the year to the end. It's tough when it ends for them without even losing." Georgiana will finish 16–12, counting tonight's forfeit. The Panthers advanced Tuesday with a dramatic 68–65 win at Florida. Azinda Pennington scored 25 in the victory. "I thought we were playing about as well as we had all year," Norris said. "We didn't win our area, which was the first time I think in 7 years. But, in just the last few weeks, we beat a good op team, we beat Hillcrest by 16, we had to play Brantley in the area tournament and knocked them out. Then we beat a very good Florida team. It's a tough blow." The next day Norris discovered the boys' team had been exposed to a positive COVID-19 test. "I called them down to the locker room Wednesday after we received word," Norris said. "I talked to them for a short time. Basically, the biggest thing I told them was how much I loved them and that they could be proud of their accomplishments this season. This is one of the toughest years anyone in high school sports has ever been through. I told them to remember the good things, the positives and all the memories they made. I told them to be glad we even got to have a season because a lot of teams didn't, some even in our state. I tried to be as positive as I could because they were and are hurting. I am, too." There is a silver lining for Georgiana basketball. The girls' team was not exposed. Without Norris on the bench, Georgiana defeated Talladega County Central 64–62 on Wednesday night in the semifinals to advance to the Class 1A Southeast Regional Final in Montgomery. The Panthers will play Samson at 1 p.m. Wednesday at Garrett Coliseum for the right to go to the Final Four. Assistants Tiana Perkins and Joseph Edwards coached the team in Norris's place and will again next week. If Georgiana advances, Norris can return to coach the Panthers in Birmingham. "We've had a lot of people step up," Norris said. "We are a very small school, and you see the benefits of a small community and school when something like this happens. This community has so much love for our kids." Norris said he was able to watch Wednesday's game on FaceTime, while also texting with his boys' team. "The guys were texting me wanting to know how the girls were doing," he said. They were so supportive after they had their hearts broken.
The program's hosts already had told Derrick Henry that they hated Alabama, where the Tennessee Titans running back had won the Heisman Trophy in 2015, and had asked him, "How much did you get paid to play for Bama?" To which Henry replied, "I got paid nothing. They paid me in rings, baby." But when Taylor Lewan said he thought Alabama produced more NFL busts than any other college football program, that's when the shouting started inside the bus during Henry's appearance on Barstool Sports' Bussin' with the Boys, which features Titans offensive tackle Lewan and linebacker Will Compton. In college, Compton played at Nebraska and Lewan at Michigan. Lewan tried to prove his point by running down a list of Alabama's NFL alumni and highlighting the players he considers busts, with Henry disputing him player by player. Warning: a couple of swear words got through all the beeping, because the beeping was mainly used to hide the names of the players whom Lewan was calling busts. 64 Alabama alumni played in NFL regular season games during the 2020 regular season, more than any other college program produced. 2 were chosen as first-team All-Pros, Henry after he became the 8th player in NFL history with 2,000 rushing yards in one season, and Pittsburgh Steelers free safety Minkah Fitzpatrick, who earned the honor for the second straight season. 3 more former Crimson Tide players joined Fitzpatrick and Henry as Pro Bowl selections for the 2020 season: Baltimore Ravens cornerback Marlon Humphrey, who drew praise during the program, Las Vegas Raiders running back Josh Jacobs, and Indianapolis Colts center Ryan Kelly. During the 2020 regular season, 52 former Alabama players started at least 1 game, 44 started at least 4 games, and 34 started at least 8 games, half the schedule. The Tennessee teammates talked about the feeling for the Titans when Henry gets into a rhythm, as he did down the stretch in the 2020 season. Henry ran for 1,081 yards in the final 7 games of the regular season, reaching the 2,000-yard milestone, winning his second straight NFL rushing crown and driving Tennessee into the AFC playoffs. Henry said the confidence that can build in an NFL team is different from the aura that he felt when playing at Alabama. "At Bama, we just knew we were going to dominate everybody we played every week, no matter who we played, by the way we practiced," Henry said. "We actually practiced harder than the game, so the game was just so much easier when it was time to play. There wasn't no doubt in our mind." Alabama posted a 37-5 record during Henry's 3 seasons, won 2 SEC championships, and captured the CFP National Championship for the 2015 season. Mark Inabinit is a sports reporter for Alabama Media Group. Follow him on Twitter at @Amerk1.
There's no need to scream if you spot a huge, scaly-looking dinosaur in a parking lot in Bessemer. Nature hasn't run amok. You've simply encountered the Jurassic Quest exhibit at Alabama Adventure and Splash Adventure. This year's edition of Jurassic Quest has transformed into a drive-through event to keep visitors safe during the coronavirus pandemic. Spectators are required to stay in the cars as they observe more than 70 animatronic dinosaurs that move and roar in fenced-off displays. The exhibit is designed to be thrilling but not scary, organizers said via a press release. There's an interactive component, as well, with visits from baby dinosaurs handled by a team of event staffers. Jurassic Quest will be at the amusement park, 4599 Splash Adventure Parkway, from February 26 to March 7. Tickets are $49 per vehicle, and must be purchased online. Hours are. A list of FAQs on the Jurassic Quest website offers more information about tickets, which must be purchased for specific days and time slots, and other details about the drive-through experience. Alcohol and smoking are not permitted on site, for example, and visitors are not allowed to sit in truck beds. Face masks must be worn by people who leave their vehicles to visit restrooms, the website says. Also, masks are strongly recommended for visitors when they are leaning outside their cars through windows or sunroofs. Social distancing rules are requested of all guests and maintained by Jurassic Quest crew, a press release says. We sanitize equipment, dinosaurs and workstations frequently and thoroughly throughout the entirety of the event. Our employees apply hand sanitizer and wash hands regularly throughout each day, in addition to wearing masks. Jurassic Quest, a touring exhibit, previously came to Birmingham in 2019 at the BJCC exhibition halls. It's the first time we've seen the dinos in a drive-through format, however.
Gardendale closed out the 66th AHSAA State Wrestling Championships strong on Saturday at the Von Braun Center in Huntsville to win its second straight title, holding off Arab 189.5 to 178.5. The Rockets now have 4 wrestling titles after also claiming back-to-back championships in 1974-75. Coach Kyle Roughton's Arab squad finished well ahead of third-place Wetumpka 150 points and McCattery 146. Arab won last year's 1A5A championship. The Knights moved up one class in the current classification, and the AHSAA's wrestling tournament competed in 3 divisions this year: Class 7A, 5A, 6A and 1A4A. Asheville won the 1A4A state wrestling title last weekend at Montgomery's Garrett Coliseum, and Vestavia Hills claimed the Class 7A title at Birmingham's Bill Harris Arena. Coach Brian Brasseel's Gardendale squad and Arab went into the consolation finals Saturday separated by just 2 points, and the Rockets emerged with a 6-point advantage headed into the championship bouts. Rockets junior Isaiah Poe finished his season at 33-0 with a win over Arab senior Jacob Holland in the 120-pound match with a pin at 3:53 to stretch Gardendale's lead to 11 points to essentially seal the championship. It was Poe's second straight individual title, who won the 6A championship last year at 113 pounds. Poe is 83-2 over the past 2 seasons. Poe's brothers, Daishan, 113 pounds, and Melton, 138, also reached the finals in their weight classes. Athens Will Anderson defeated Daishan, while Melton 32-2 topped previously unbeaten Kyler Adams 35-1 of Wetumpka with an 11-9 decision for the title. The 3-day 5A, 6A championships featured 32 wrestler brackets in all 14 weight divisions. Moody Jr. Corey Land won his 4th straight championship and closed out a 3rd consecutive unbeaten season by winning the 126-pound class. Land, 44-0, won by technical fall over Homewood's Sam Sutton in a match that was called at 2:43 with the Blue Devils wrestler leading 21-6. Alexandria Jr. Jaden New pinned Buckhorn's Gabe Sweat 34-3 in the 152-pound division at 4:27 for his 114th straight win and 3rd straight individual state crown. He finished this year at 17-0 after winning the 1A5A title last year at 145 pounds with a 52-0 mark. In 2019, he won the 132-pound class title. Oxford senior Chase Hicks 38-2 and Spanish Fort junior Gabe Warren 29-2 squared off at 145 pounds in a battle of defending champions. Hicks, who won at 152 pounds in 2020, defeated Warren with a 10-6 decision. Warren had won a title in 2020 at 132 pounds. In the only championship match featuring 2 undefeated wrestlers, Pelham sophomore Rafael Ippolito 25-0 won the 160-pound title, topping Oxford senior Jakob Chisholm 25-1 with a 12-8 decision. Arab junior Caleb Rowe won the 170-pound weight class with a 7-2 decision over Pelham sophomore Seth Branham 36-3 as the Knights closed strong in its final 2 matches of the tournament. When UCF's social media team released its graphic announcing its new coach, it featured just one face, Gus Malzahn's. But by choosing Gus Malzahn, UCF also chose Christy Malzahn, a woman who had a huge impact on the Auburn program in the 8 seasons her husband coached there. Christy was the first person Gus thanked in his opening press conference as UCF's new coach. She also met with the players as soon as they arrived, and shortly after UCF started tweeting out photos of the two of them. While she may not make decisions about the X's and O's, she brought light and laughter to the players and families during her time at Auburn. If she plays a similar role at UCF, her presence will be felt throughout the program. She's looking forward to being a team mom, Gus said in his opening press conference. Christy only had daughters with her husband, but as a football coach's wife, she's had hundreds and hundreds of sons. Over the course of Gus's coaching career, Christy said he's been very kind and has let her get involved with the team. It's become their endeavor instead of his endeavor, and helps them deal with the long, odd hours. We do this thing together, Gus said. While Gus worries about schemes and strategies, Christy worries about the team's hearts. To me, the football takes care of itself, Christie said. But I feel like our calling and our job is really about young men. It's really, the X's and O's. Yes, I know it's important. Yes, I know we need to win. But more than that, I know that when I'm standing for accountability, it's going to be how did I use my time and my influence with those kids. That's what matters to me. Their partnership has paid off for them personally, but at Auburn it also paid off on the field, starting with Christie's involvement in the recruiting process. When recruits and their families visited Auburn, they got to know the Malzahns and saw how the two, with their seemingly opposite personalities, complemented each other. Recruits' moms can tell a lot about a coach in the way he interacts with his wife and his children, Christie said. Some people can put on a show, but Christie isn't one of them. It doesn't take long to figure her out. The first thing that comes to mind when you say Christie is she's just real, Melody Schenker, Auburn tight end John Samuel Schenker's mom, said. There's no pomp and circumstance to her. She loves your kids. She wants them to do their best. She loves her husband. She's a mom. Tanya Britt, former Auburn linebacker KJ Britt's mom, described their first meeting as radiant because their personalities matched so well. Christy Troxell, offensive lineman Austin Troxell's mom, said she felt comfortable from the start because Christy was always her sweet self. Jennifer Frazier, tight end Brandon Frazier's mom, is an athletic director and former coach. She's already had one son recruited and has met many great coaches' wives. But Christie's personality and ability to connect with people stuck out.
Huntsville Hospital won't make new appointments for COVID-19 vaccinations for the next month due to a drop in vaccine supplies from the state. The North Alabama Hospital System said today it will stop making new appointments for its community vaccination clinic until the week of March 22. People with existing appointments should come at their scheduled time unless contacted by the hospital said. The hospital said state officials have said it will only receive enough vaccine for 1,000 new doses per week, which is less than half of the previous allocation for Huntsville Hospital. If you are one of the thousands on the waiting list, you will not receive a scheduling phone call for at least 2 weeks, the statement said. The hospital said the allocation of vaccines shipped from the state of Alabama to area hospitals has been reduced in recent days, forcing hospitals to reduce the number of first doses they can provide. Some locations are already out of first doses, the hospital said, and more than 45,000 people are on vaccine waiting lists across its North Alabama system. Alabama State Health Officer Dr. Scott Harris said today that the state isn't getting enough doses every week to supply the drive-through clinics that helped Alabama give more than 76,000 vaccinations the week of February 6. Huntsville Hospital's clinic in Huntsville isn't drive-through, but it did give more than 1,000 doses a day during the statewide vaccination surge earlier this month. Harris cited shipping delays caused by weather and worsening virus conditions at the site of a major supplier for Alabama. We certainly have had some questions about shipping delays because of the weather. We certainly did have shipping delays in several counties, he said today. We had some counties that, received vaccine, but just had clinics that were cancelled. But we had some clinics that just simply weren't able to be open for anything to be delivered. And, of course, a lot of our deliveries come from the Memphis area into Alabama and, of course, it has it worse than we do right now, Harris said. Harris said the state is talking to vaccine manufacturers McKesson and Pfizer directly about their shipments every day, every hour almost, and trying to make sure that we get all those things put back on schedule. It certainly has delayed some clinics for people, Harris said. We've had a number of calls from providers around the state who were anticipating second doses coming in, and those are just going to be delayed for a few days. But they will all arrive eventually. AL.com reporter Dennis Pillion contributed to this report.
This is an opinion column. It was early November 2008, a few days before the U.S. presidential election. I lived in New York and was at lunch with a friend. There was much anticipation and optimism in my circles about the possible election of then U.S. Senator Barack Obama to America's highest office, and concern. I just hope, my friend said, her voice trailing off. The words needed not be said. I sought, best I could, to ease her fears, to change the subject. If he's elected, I said, I guarantee you two things will happen: 1, he'll have the best Secret Service in history, and 2, he'll make white folks crazy. We laughed out loud. Funny thing, or not so much, really, that's exactly what happened. Now, breathe. Not all white folks, of course. It was hyperbole. So, chill. Still, it happened. The election of the first black president of the United States turned up the burners beneath the simmering stew of racism percolating in the darkest crock pots of our nation. And for the next 8 years, a whole bunch of folks sat down at the table and indulged. Until their bellies overflowed. Until they were enraged. So much so that congressional leaders of the opposing party flat out said they'd lend zero to support his policies, no matter whom they might benefit. Those same lawmakers petulantly refused to consider an Obama Supreme Court nominee during the final days of his presidency, even defying the very Constitution they haughtily claimed to defend. A president was elected whose primary policy seemed to be to simply un-Obama America, and enrich himself and already enriched friends. His zealots stormed the U.S. Capitol, an act of insurrection none of us has seen, and hopefully will never see again. Our own state's leaders, Alabama Republicans, let's be clear, led by Governor Kay Ivey, for years steadfastly and petulantly refused to expand Medicaid, refused to access millions of federal dollars to help provide more Alabamians with health insurance coverage. Coverage that might improve their lives. Coverage that might incentivize them to go to the doctor before they're gripped by a life-threatening illness. All because, well, degummed, it was Obama's idea. It was part of Obamacare, the term they tried to derisively deploy to stain the Affordable Care Act, the flawed but what else you got effort to create affordable healthcare options for Americans most in need. The former president ultimately flipped the deriders and laughingly embraced the term. Now, here we are, more than 12 years since 2008, and I'm grateful. Grateful that, according to a new poll, most Alabamians have finally come around on expanding Medicaid to cover more low-income adults, mainly working adults whose employers do not provide insurance or who still cannot afford it. 69% of respondents to the poll from Cover Alabama, a group of 90 organizations that support Medicaid expansion, either strongly or somewhat support it, too. An Alabama lawmaker on Friday said he would withdraw his resolution to rename a Tuscaloosa road named in honor of slain Tuscaloosa police det. Dornell Couzette. Senator Gerald Allen had introduced a resolution that would change the name of Couzette Street to Sabin Way. Al.com's Kyle Whitmire chronicled the resolution in a column published earlier Friday. Tuscaloosa Police Chief Brent Blankley met with Allen Friday at Allen's request, who apologized for sponsoring the bill and vowed to withdraw the legislation. We're glad to know that the road leading to TPD headquarters will continue to honor our fallen officer, Blankley said. Blankley earlier Friday said he was concerned to learn of the proposal. Each day our officers put their lives on the line, and there are those rare occasions when one of our men and women do not come home, the chief said. It's more than a name to us. It is honoring a fallen hero. Allen posted this statement on his Facebook page also earlier Friday. A mistake was recently made in renaming a portion of Investigator Dornell Couzette Street in relation to a resolution that I sponsored 2 weeks ago. As soon as I learned of the mistake, I contacted the appropriate individuals to make sure that the problem will be immediately fixed. Officer Dornell Couzette served as member of the Tuscaloosa Police Department when he was killed in the line of duty on September 16, 2019. I fully supported the effort to rename the street in honor of Officer Couzette. Our police and veterans are heroes and their sacrifices should never be forgotten. Again, I am making sure that the mistake is quickly corrected. To my knowledge, no sign or marker honoring Officer Couzette was or will be removed. 2 years ago, Couzette, a Tuscaloosa police officer, responded to a call about a suspect who had jumped bond. When Couzette chased the man into an apartment, gunfire erupted. A bullet struck Couzette in the face, and he died at DCH Regional Medical Center a short time later. About 2,000 people attended Couzette's funeral, which filled a gymnasium and an overflow space at Shelton State Community College. His fiancée and 2 girls were there, too. Mourners, waving flags and holding signs, lined the roads for his funeral procession. At their next home game, University of Alabama football fans wore blue instead of the usual crimson, in his honor. The ultimate sacrifice of Officer Dornell Kuzet will never be forgotten, Governor Kay Ivey said after the officer's death. The Tuscaloosa City Council renamed 35th Street after the fallen officer. Dornell Kuzet Street would intersect with Trevor Phillips Drive, named for another fallen officer. Both roads, near the city police headquarters, would carry officers home from their shifts. Last month, Allen introduced the resolution to rename the street for Sabin. 32 of his Senate colleagues signed on as co-sponsors. A 24-year-old man being held by authorities in a murder investigation in Huntsville, Alabama, has been named as a suspect in a 2018 killing in Albuquerque, police in New Mexico said Friday. Brian Humphrey Sallings remained jailed in Huntsville, where police said he was previously arrested in a 2019 homicide case and refused to answer questions from Albuquerque police. An arrest warrant was issued this month in New Mexico for Humphrey Sallings' arrest in the August 2018 drug deal killing of Christopher Salazar, police said in a statement. A second suspect, Deshaun Hall, 26, is still sought in Salazar's killing, Albuquerque police said. Investigators believe Humphrey Sallings, Hall and an accomplice used social media to lure Salazar's son, Demetrius Salazar, to a drug transaction with the intent to rob him. The name of the alleged accomplice was not disclosed. Demetrius Salazar was with his father and another person when Hall approached their vehicle and fatally shot Christopher Salazar as he reached for his gun, police said. Christopher Salazar later died from his injuries. Only one NFL player ran faster with the football in his hands than former Alabama running back Kenyon Drake during the 2020 season. The NFL's next-gen stats recorded Drake as reaching 22.11 miles per hour on a 69-yard touchdown run in the Arizona Cardinals' 38-10 victory over the Dallas Cowboys on October 19. The contest was Drake's top game of the season as he ran for 164 yards and 2 touchdowns on 20 carries on his way to 955 yards and 10 touchdowns on 239 rushing attempts during 2020. Alabama roots, who's going to be a free agent? San Francisco 49ers running back Raheem Mostert was the only player who topped Drake's fastest showing, and he did it twice with a 23.09 miles per hour clocking on an 80-yard touchdown run against the New York Jets on September 20 and 22.73 miles per hour on a 76-yard catch and run for a touchdown against the Cardinals on September 13. Former West Alabama standout Tyreek Hill also posted one of Next Gen Stats' fastest speeds for a ball carrier in 2020. The Kansas City Chiefs wide receiver came in at No. 5 by reaching 21.91 miles per hour on a 44-yard touchdown reception during a 33-27 victory over the Miami Dolphins on December 13. Mark Inabinit is a sports reporter for Alabama Media Group. Follow him on Twitter at Amerk1. Alabama High School's top 10 NFL receivers Derrick Henry defends Alabama against busts claim Derrick Henry prominent in NFL's top 100 plays of 2020 Eagles trade Carson Wentz, keep Jalen Hurts Alabama High School's top 10 NFL rushers Alabama's top 10 NFL passers Auburn's top 10 NFL passers Amari Cooper thrills youngster by playing catch Carl Lawson could see tenfold increase in pay in NFL free agency Alabama's top 10 NFL receivers Auburn's top 10 NFL receivers Darren Payne excited about Washington's 2021 prospects Alabama's top 10 NFL rushers Auburn's top 10 NFL rushers Cam Newton spent millions on clothes I only wore once Cam Newton, coming for everything 2020 took from me Bengals like Jonah Williams where he is on their offensive line 45 yards still on Kenyon Drake's mind. When the founders of Black Market Street, a platform for showcasing Alabama-based, Black-owned businesses launched the project last spring, they initially planned for the endeavor to be a statewide traveling pop-up shop. A joint program sponsored by Terry Reynolds of Levi's Grace, Inc. and Gregory and Aisha Jones of the G.I. Jones Foundation, the mission of Black Market Street is to encourage entrepreneurship and economic growth within communities of color. Last year, their plans included networking events in Birmingham, Huntsville, Demopolis, Montgomery, and Mobile. But when the COVID-19 pandemic hit Alabama, the trio had to go back to the drawing board. So they regrouped and designed a series of virtual events and programming that would allow the project to spotlight Black-owned businesses without the public health risk. One of those virtual programs is Black Market Street's Ready, Set, Pitch video competition, which offers more than $4,000 in promotion and cash prizes to Black-owned businesses and startup ventures in Alabama. This week, organizers extended the deadline for the competition with another open call for Black business owners around the state to submit a video pitching their products or services to the public. To qualify for the competition, video pitches must be 90 seconds or less and focused on a business, product, service, or brand. All pitches must be emailed to Black Market Street by March 31, 2021. Interested business owners can find full competition details under the pitch section at www.blackmarketstreet.org. The top 3 winners receive cash prizes of $2,000, $1,000, and $500. The top 10 entries will have the opportunity to participate in the G.I. Jones Foundation Small Business Bootcamp, which will teach business owners strategies for growth. Participants in the bootcamp will also have the chance to pitch the businesses to potential angel investors. The top 20 pitch videos will also be eligible for additional sponsored promotion of their businesses. Black Market Street will feature all eligible videos on its YouTube channel, website, and social media platforms. Levi's Grace co-founder Terry Reynolds says Black Market Street started the pitch competition to give newly formed and established Black-owned businesses a free platform to showcase and promote their products and services. Additionally, we hope the cash prizes from the pitch competition will allow the winners to invest that money back into their businesses to expand their reach in business operations, Reynolds explained to AL.com in an email. As the calendar transitions from Black History Month into Women's History Month in March, Black Market Street will focus on identifying women-owned businesses to spotlight across its platforms.
Mad Pies Restaurant and Bar in Fultondale is hosting an all-day concert today to raise money for people whose lives were affected by a January 25 tornado that tore through the city and left a trail of destruction. A 14-year-old boy was killed and at least 30 people were injured in the storm. More than 300 homes and businesses were damaged or destroyed, according to Fultondale Fire Chief Justin McKenzie. Mad Pies, 1731 Decatur Highway, wants to help the community recover with proceeds from its Southern Sound Benefit Showcase, which starts at 2 p.m. Country, rock and southern rock musicians are scheduled to perform until midnight at the restaurant, including Driver, Matt Bennett, Len Park and Ben Mosley. "We are lucky that our building only got clipped by the tornado," Nick Bryan, co-owner of Mad Pies, said via a press release. "We feel that putting on this show is our way to give back to our hometown." Tickets to the event are $20, available at the door or online through escapetix.com. All ticket sales from the Southern Sound Benefit Showcase will go towards those affected by the tornado to help restore homes and hope for the Fultondale community, the release said. Mad Pies also seeks donations for its tornado relief efforts through @MadPies on Venmo, and asks donors to include #FultondaleStrong in the description field on the app. There's no word yet on how the money will be distributed, or if it will be funneled through a non-profit organization. People who attend the event will be asked to maintain social distancing and wear face masks when they're not eating or drinking, a restaurant spokeswoman said.
Publix wants eligible employees to get the COVID-19 vaccine. And the chain is offering an incentive. Get a vaccine, get a $125 gift card. A Publix gift card, or course. The Lakeland-based company said it will not require any of its more than 225,000 employees to get vaccinated. Publix has employees throughout Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, South Carolina, North Carolina and Virginia. The company is encouraging employees to get vaccinated to help us take one step closer to getting back to normal, Publix CEO Todd Jones said in a statement. All eligible full-time and part-time employees at Publix can get the gift card when they complete the 2-dose series of Pfizer BioNTech or Moderna's vaccine. The COVID-19 vaccine gift card incentive is similar to one Publix usually offers to customers for the flu shot. Employees don't have to get the vaccine at a Publix pharmacy. If they do want to get the shots through Publix, they will need to use the same online portal customers use to book a slot. They will also be offering vaccines to employees through their end of doses at night procedure. The process allows for any leftover doses at the end of the day to be given to eligible associates, to make sure the vaccines don't go to waste, Publix said. It may take a while for most eligible Publix employees to get a dose. Vaccine availability is still limited, and appointments, including at Publix, fill up fast. Each state also has its own set of eligibility guidelines. During the height of the pandemic, Publix stores were frequently closing and reopening as employees tested positive for the virus. By late April, Publix had 30 stores in South Florida that had positive employee cases, the Miami Herald reported. In Florida, only residents 65 and older, healthcare workers with direct patient contact and long-term care facility residents and staff are eligible for the vaccine. Hospitals also have the option to vaccinate people under 65 deemed to be extremely vulnerable to the disease. And there's no word yet on when the criteria will change. See 2021 Miami Herald. Visit Miami Herald at www.miamiherald.com. Distributed by Tribune Content Agency, LLC.
When you have to rank last Alabama's 6 national championships, your fan base might be a little spoiled. But Crimson Tide fans wouldn't have it any other way and are glad to stress through a list like that. On Al.com's Facebook Live show, Bama's Matt Scalici and Ben Flanagan ranked Bama's 6 titles under Nick Saban and invited Bama fans to give us their rankings as well in the comments. They discuss how they think fans would rank the national title wins, determined by several factors: the overall season storylines, the memorable moments from each game, the legendary player performances, and the personal memories that make them all so special. There is no wrong answer here. Which title wins are most meaningful to you? Is there maybe a little recency bias towards Alabama's latest 2020 title? Is the first championship run from 2009 still the sweetest? Watch the video above for Matt and Ben's picks and explanations. Here's how Matt and Ben rank them, from best to least best. Read all of the Facebook viewer comments. Check out some highlights below. Share your picks in the Facebook comments. Follow Matt Scalici and Ben Flanagan on Twitter. Subscribe to the Bama's podcast on Acast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever else you get your podcasts.
The best shortstop that most young baseball fans have never heard of was from Speck of Nothing, Springville, Alabama, and when he would walk into the dugout for spring training he'd say, "Never fear, Artie's here." Artie Wilson of the Birmingham Black Barons was arguably the best shortstop in baseball in the 1940s, yet most fans of the game who didn't grow up immersed in the history of the Negro Leagues don't even know he existed. It's time for a re-education on players like Wilson, and a reckoning for how we're going to remember the segregated game of baseball once and for all. Preserving Wilson's legacy is a perfect example of why MLB's decision to include Negro League stats could be so important if done correctly. Spring training is here for 2021, and so I wanted to shed some new light on Wilson's career after baseball announced that it would officially recognize Negro League players as major leaguers. Back in December, that announcement was met with appropriate scorn. The integration of baseball's records is a necessary step, though, if the hope is to preserve the memory of the Negro Leagues for future fans of the game. And, more importantly, for how we tell our American history. As someone who daydreams often about Wilson and Lorenzo "Piper" Davis manning the middle infield for my hometown Birmingham Black Barons, I can appreciate how important integrated statistics and records are to the lasting memory of one of the greatest baseball franchises in the history of the game. The players and contemporary fans of the Negro Leagues don't need a stamp of approval from MLB to know that Negro League baseball was every bit as good as white-only ball, but it's not about that. It's about looking back on baseball 100 years from now, and seeing names like Arthur Lee Wilson of the Birmingham Black Barons in the record books and in the National Baseball Hall of Fame. Jackie Robinson is the most important athlete in the history of American sports, but people who watched Wilson field his position during the same era said Wilson was one of the best of all time. Artie was a superstar before the term was invented, Monty Irvin said in Roger Cohn's book, A Season in the Sun. How could that player not already be in the National Baseball Hall of Fame? It's because the legacy of racism in baseball has affected the way historians and writers analyze the game. In the Negro Leagues, they called Wilson Octopus because it was like he had 8 arms that reached everywhere. How was Wilson as a hitter? He hit .437 for the Birmingham Black Barons in 1948, according to new research by the historical heroes at seamheads.com, and his .374 career batting average for Birmingham gives him a mark in a now recognized major league level of baseball better than Ty Cobb, .367. Cobb has forever been credited with the best career batting average of a segregated game. Oh, and there's this. Wilson, who threw right and batted left, did it all with a nub for a right thumb. More than 16,000 votes were cast for the statewide Boys and Girls Basketball Players of the Week. Michaela Gordon of McCattery was the Girls Player of the Week, while Logan Washburn of Cleveland was selected the Boys Player of the Week. Gordon earned area tournament MVP, had 19 points and 3 steals in win over Hueytown. She had 4,380 of 10,198 votes. The rest of the top 5 were Caroline Striplin of Geneva County, Kiera Howard of Vigor, Ella Valles of St. Paul's and Kristen Guy of Baker. Washburn had 27 points, 5 assists and 3 rebounds in the first round of the area tournament against Southeastern, then had 37 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists and 2 steals in the championship game against Locust Fork, surpassing the 2,000-point mark for his career. He collected 3,852 of 6,768 votes. The remainder of the top 5 were Hudson Thrasher of American Christian, Clay Smith of Decatur Heritage, Riley Leonard of Fairhope and Gerald Williams, Saraland. February 11th, Christian Thompson, Homewood Jan. 29, Cam Crawford, Spain Park Jan. 22, Sam Rowley, Tuscaloosa Academy Jan. 15, Kaylin Lightford, Sparkman Feb. 11, Lydia Paulette, Northridge Jan. 29, M.G. Lyman, Foley Jan. 22, Emma Kate Tittle, Winfield Jan. 15, Ganaye Whitfield Moss, Hueytown ASWA Basketball Rankings AL.com Power 10 Girls Basketball Teams AL.com Power 10 Boys Basketball Teams.
South Alabama extended its winning streak to 7 games with a 65-63 victory at Appalachian State on Friday night. The Jaguars, 15-8 overall, 9-5 Sun Belt Conference, won despite not scoring over the final 3:25 of game time and turning the ball over 17 times. South Alabama also was troubled by fouls much of the night, with 4 players ending the game with 4 fouls each. With the victory, South Alabama leads the Sun Belt Conference East Division by 1.5 games ahead of Appalachian State and Idle Coastal Carolina, who are both 6-5. The Jaguars have 3 games left, against the Mountaineers on Saturday and 2 at home next weekend versus Georgia State. On Friday, Michael Flowers put forth a solid all-around effort for South Alabama with 19 points, 9 rebounds and 7 assists. Tyreek Lockyer and John Petway added 15 points each, while Petway and Ko Goncalves each grabbed 8 rebounds. Flowers' pull-up jumper in the lane gave South Alabama a 65-56 lead with 3:25 to play, but the Jaguars did not score after that. The Mountaineers, 12-8 overall, scored the final 8 points of the game on a layup by Donovan Gregory and 5 free throws, 2 by Justin Forrest and 3 by Michael Almanacci with 59 seconds remaining. Appalachian State missed a pair of 3-point attempts in the final 21 seconds, then got an alternating possession jump ball with 7 seconds to play. Almanacci's 3-point attempt missed and South Alabama's Jamal West grabbed the rebound as time expired. Forrest led Appalachian State with a game-high 20 points, while Almanacci added 15 and Gregory 14. The Mountaineers shot just 26.6% from the field, 23.1% on three-pointers, but stayed in the game by making 23 of 27 free throw attempts. The 2 teams meet again at 3 p.m. Saturday.
By Marcia Dunn, AP Aerospace writer. Cape Canaveral, Florida, a space station supply ship named after the black NASA mathematician featured in the movie Hidden Figures rocketed into orbit Saturday, the 59th anniversary of John Glenn's historic launch. Northrop Grumman's Cygnus capsule, dubbed the SS Katherine Johnson, should reach the International Space Station on Monday following its launch from Virginia's eastern shore. Johnson died almost exactly a year ago at age 101, Mrs. Johnson was selected for her hand-written calculations that helped launch the first Americans into space, as well as her accomplishments in breaking glass ceiling after glass ceiling as a black woman, Frank DeMoro, a Northrop Grumman vice president, said on the eve of liftoff. A homework assignment for all of you is to go watch that movie after the Cygnus launch. Johnson's numbers contributed to the February 20, 1962, flight in which Glenn became the first American to orbit the world. Contributions to the success of Glenn's flight by Johnson and other black women were depicted in the 2017 film. They worked at NASA's Langley Research Center in Hampton, Virginia, 100 miles from the launch site at Wallops Island. Northrop Grumman launched the 4-ton shipment for NASA in the early afternoon from Wallops, where temperatures were just above freezing. The Antares rocket was visible from the Carolinas to Connecticut, at least where skies were clear. This will be the space station's second delivery in less than a week. A Russian capsule pulled up Wednesday with apples and oranges, among other things. "Oh, we love fresh food," tweeted Japanese astronaut Soichi Noguchi. He noted that the space station flew over Virginia just 10 minutes ahead of Saturday's launch. Noguchi and his 6 U.S. and Russian crewmates can expect more apples once the Cygnus arrives, along with tomatoes, nuts, smoked salmon, Parmesan and cheddar cheeses, caramels and coconut strips. The capsule also holds 120,000 tiny roundworms for a muscle experiment, as well as off-the-shelf computer equipment to increase data processing speed at the space station. Also flying, radiation detectors intended for NASA's astronaut moon landing program, and a new system to convert more of the astronauts' urine into drinking water. It is Northrop Grumman's 15th station supply run for NASA. SpaceX is NASA's other shipper. The Associated Press Health and Science Department receives support from the Howard Hughes Medical Institute's Department of Science Education. The AP is solely responsible for all content. This is an opinion column. Dornell Kuzet was supposed to be a name people wouldn't forget. Not just a name, but a life. A cop and a father, killed in the line of duty. Except one Alabama lawmaker did forget or just wasn't paying attention in the first place. Now he's led his colleagues in Montgomery down a dead-end street. A resolution introduced by State Senator Gerald Allen would change the name of a Tuscaloosa road honoring a fallen police officer to memorialize someone else. Instead, someone Alabama isn't the least bit likely to forget, no matter what the road is called. If the Alabama House approves Allen's resolution, rather than leaving work on Kuzet Street after the end of their shifts, Tuscaloosa police officers would travel home on. Making this look even worse is the fact that Kuzet was black. And Allen? For the moment, let's just say he has some history. But we'll get to that. 2 years ago, Kuzet, a Tuscaloosa police officer, responded to a call about a suspect who had jumped bond. When Kuzet chased the man into an apartment, gunfire erupted. A bullet struck Kuzet in the face, and he died at DCH Regional Medical Center a short time later. About 2,000 people attended Kuzet's funeral, which filled a gymnasium and an overflow space at Shelton State Community College. His fiancée and 2 girls were there, too. Mourners, waving flags and holding signs, lined the roads for his funeral procession. At their next home game, University of Alabama football fans wore blue instead of the usual crimson, in his honor. The ultimate sacrifice of Officer Dornell Kuzet will never be forgotten, Governor Kay Ivey said after the officer's death. And a year after Kuzet's death, the Tuscaloosa City Council renamed 35th Street after the fallen officer. Dornell Kuzet Street would intersect with Trevor Phillips Drive, named for another fallen officer. Both roads, near the city police headquarters, would carry officers home from their shifts, Police Chief Brent Blankley said. Officer Kuzet didn't get to go home the night of September 16, 2019, but I think he'd be happy knowing that he's on our minds every day that we get to, Blankley said in the statement. It's not something we take for granted. There were stories about the name change on television and in newspapers, but Allen seems to have missed all of that. Or forgotten. Last month Allen introduced the resolution to rename the street for Sabin. 32 of his Senate colleagues signed on as co-sponsors, even Senator Tom Whatley of Auburn, because Roll Tide. The resolution passed on a voice vote and is now before the Alabama House. It was only after it passed the Senate that anyone asked whether the street was already named for somebody else. When I spoke with Alan about it this week, at first he didn't want to talk about it. We are in discussion of that, okay, he said. 2-year-old Major Turner died 2 weeks ago today, hours after he was gunned down in a close-knit, highly populated Birmingham housing community. Since then, there have been prayers for the toddler and his family, tears for his life cut short and the family's loss, outrage over the senseless, tragic killing. Candles have been lit, balloons released, and rewards offered. What there hasn't been, however, is anyone, willing to step forward and give Birmingham police what they need to make an arrest in the case and bring some sort of closure, some sort of justice, to a grieving family, a grieving community. That has to change, city leaders say. There's a saying that evil triumphs when good men and women do nothing, Jefferson County District Attorney Danny Carr said Friday during a press conference held by city and police leaders. Today, at this moment, I'm asking those good men and women who we know have information, no matter how small, who we know have an idea about what happened that evening to come forward to the Birmingham Police Department solve this case. Any investigation is not complete without some form of community involvement, said Birmingham Police Chief Patrick Smith. We must remove the old playbook of the no-snitch culture if we want to achieve stronger, safer communities. Now is the time to take a stand for future generations. Thursday marked the solemn 2-week anniversary of the shooting of Major Turner. The shooting happened shortly before 10 p.m. Thursday, February 4th, on John Bryant Road in the Wenonah community. The family had finished dinner and Major was on the couch with his mother and another sibling. 2 other siblings were upstairs watching TV. It was then that gunfire erupted, pelting the apartment. Neighbors reported hearing 8 to 10 shots. There were at least 10 bullet holes in the window screens plus more in the apartment's front door. It appears 1 or 2 bullets also struck the neighboring apartment, but no injuries were reported there. Major was rushed to Children's of Alabama where he was pronounced dead at 2:45 a.m. Friday. His mother, 29-year-old Breanne Smith, was treated and released a short time later. Smith, 9 months pregnant when the shooting happened, delivered her 5th son just 5 days ago. She spoke publicly for the first time Thursday during a vigil held outside the bullet-riddled apartment. No arrests have been made in Major's slaying, and investigators said tips from the community have been few and far between. Governor Kay Ivey on Thursday announced a $5,000 reward for information in Major's killing. Another group, Voices of Black Mothers United, also on Thursday pledged $1,000, and the Carlos Chevurst Foundation offered $500. Combined with the existing Crime Stoppers reward of $5,000, the total reward now stands at $11,500. Smith said he doesn't know why there are few tips in Major's death. The leads have been coming in very slowly, the chief said. 2 women who dressed as grannies to get COVID vaccinations Wednesday were turned away and issued trespass warnings at the Orange County Convention Center where the state is giving shots, officials said. The women, identified by the Orange County Sheriff's Office as Olga Monroy Ramirez, 34, and Martha Monroy, 44, disguised themselves with bonnets, gloves, glasses, the whole thing, said Dr. Raul Pino, state health officer in Orange. He described the bonnets as shower caps. Pino's description of the brazen ruse at Thursday's regular Orange update on the pandemic drew international headlines, with the Florida grannies being featured by outlets ranging from The Guardian to HuffPost and People. Though turned away Wednesday, they apparently managed to get a first dose previously because the document they presented for a second dose was valid. Sheriff's Office spokeswoman Michelle Guido said a sheriff's report had no information about how the women were dressed. She said they had altered their years of birth on their vaccination registrations to bypass the state system which prioritizes people age 65 and older. Their names matched their registration but not their dates of birth, she said. Deputies were asked by health department personnel to issue trespass warnings to the women. Pino said the health department's investigation will try to determine where they were vaccinated earlier and how did they manage to get an appointment. He said the department will try to figure out if there are any holes, any loopholes, in the process that are allowing people to do that. Pino said people have been frustrated by the scarcity of supply for the vaccine. If it wasn't for the many people who need it and cannot get it, it's kind of hilarious in a sense, he said of the women's disguise. But it's also disappointing because they are taking the place of someone else in much higher need. He said he wasn't surprised the ruse worked at least once and suggested there may have been other successful tricksters. When you're moving that volume, things like this can happen, he said. The state plans to increase the number of daily vaccinations at the convention center from 2,500 to 3,000 on Monday. Shudak at OrlandoSentinel.com. See 2021 The Orlando Sentinel, Orlando, Florida. Visit the Orlando Sentinel, Orlando, Florida, at www.orlandosentinel.com. Distributed by Tribune Content Agency, LLC.